Okay.
In the future for the exam, can we clarify whether it will be current e-mobility or past e-mobility, please?
I will, but I want you to understand that we're learning, and I don't really care about grades. So yes, I understand that you're frustrated because maybe it wasn't clear on the quiz, but I want to be very clear to you. I don't try to trick you. And I want to be very clear that when you think through a case, these are the critical pieces that I want you all to develop. This class is specifically meant to get you prepared for fourth year. When you're on your fourth year rotations, I want to be very clear that these are the type of concepts that you need to know and present to your preceptor when you're on rotation. Okay, so I will adjust the quiz. I'll probably give you half credit for doing that, because I feel like DVT from a left knee replacement is huge, and that's something you should catch. If you don't catch that on rotation, that's a problem. So I'll probably give you partial credit for not catching that, but I want to be very clear in the point that that is something you should have caught.
So the fact that it's been 3 months there's no consideration for that with regard to his immobility.
We're going to move on, because I feel like I made that very clear. We're going to move on.
No, you
So
didn't,
for today's class period, what we're going to do is take that same patient who presented to the ED, and now we're going to follow them to the hospital stay and afterwards. So if you look at the chart, the patient had their ED event a couple months ago. So by the end of today's class, we're going to bring him up to today, and he's going to be in a clinic visit with us today. So for day one, we're going to go back into history. We're going to go back a couple months into July, and we're going to start day one. So what I want you guys to do is go on TLC, and I'm going to make it live so that you're able to pull up the module. So give me 1 second. We're going to pull up the module. You're going to have 5 to 10 minutes, look through the case on the module, and I want you to use the patient care process in order to determine what are the problems and how are we going to solve those problems for our patient. So again, let me reiterate. I want you to use the patient care process. So this is what we do when we're out on our fourth year rotation, is we use our patient care process in order to evaluate our patient, come up with a problem, come up with a solution. What are you going to do for your patient? So drug, dose, frequency, counseling, and monitoring. Okay? Let me make this go live. It should be published. Your day one module should be published on ELC. So please go to this week's module and start with day one module. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes, use your patient care process to find out what is the patient problem and how do you want to go about solving it.
Are you all able to access it? Let me know if you have any questions. I think she did.
if you find something else, let me know. But he let me know else know if they article me.
Currently on hospital day 1 of his stay. So this is not. Okay. All right. Never mind. I lied. It's not past. It's right now. So EHR go, which is the same EHR. Yeah, we're considering getting 726 or 725.
For the other campuses in Athens, in Augusta, and Albany, you do have a facilitator there to give you some moral support for today, walking through these cases. So my facilitators don't necessarily know what the answers are going to be to the case, but if you have technical issues working through the modules and things like that, they are there to support you. So if you have issues that come up today, just let them know, so that way you're not trying to deal with technology, but we're trying to really hone in on the material for today. So if you have issues, let them know, or just let me know, either way.
There are the values from 725. But then if I scroll over, there's always from 726. So I think we're saying he gets submitted on 725 based on now it's 726 international and then if you go to 10, this was what we did last year. You can see where they're administering it, not severe, 103 milligrams.
78.
Subcutaneous update. Now in that, the right dose. 20 milligrams once daily, so that should be in 1.5 times his weight.
They have his allergies as high as but he's taking.
78.
Yeah, he's allergic to ibuprofen.
So they're dosing not enough, but they're trying to use
Oh no? Maybe not.
Where's that at?
Savannah just asked if we are going to do what the little kids vote, choose your own adventure, and that is absolutely correct. We are going to do a choose your own adventure with our patient today. So you can choose anything you want.
I don't know. Choose your own adventure.
Choose your own adventure.
That's the one, is that for me?
No, this was, she posted it because of the Ergo. It's like advantages, but, yeah, so if you go to the bottom of the EHR.
I mean, he likes the difference.
I don't like this. Yeah, I don't either. I think I spend more time trying to make my stuff I just started making it way in advance so that way even if it took me forever, it would be okay. Like my ADR one is done.
Okay. No, I was just very
What do I do for this patient? Because is that the right one?
Yeah, that's just the guideline that like our
I'm not trying to change this long term.
Hey, what's this right now?
All right, we're gonna get started back. Adam, can you let me know if you can hear me, please?
We can hear you.
Good. Augusta, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. And Albany, was that you?
We can hear you.
Great. Okay. So we are gonna get started with our Choose Your Own Adventure. We had a little epiphany here in Savannah that I just wanted to share with everybody. And that's the difference between clocks. So we're gonna go off on a tangent for a second and then I'll come back to our activity for today. So their epiphany here in Savannah was that clots are different from each other. So you can have a venous clot, so venous thromboembolism is on your veins. And when you have a clot in your veins, we're talking about factors 2, 7, 9, and 10, fibrin, fibrinogen, that whole pathway, versus when you have a clot that's in your arteries, like a stroke or a heart attack, then you have a clot in your arteries, and that's made of platelets and atherosclerotic causes. So cholesterol and down that pathway. Okay, so they're fundamentally, so we treat them fundamentally different. So when we have a venous clot, we treat with in what we consider an oral anticoagulant or canoxapan or something of that sort. When we have an arterial clot, heart attack, stroke, then, and we think it's atherosclerotic related, then we're going to go through our atherosclerotic pathways. So antiplatelet agents, essentially, right? Platelet is the root cause. So that's when we're going to use our more antiplatelet agents. Now there is some crossover a little bit because you have anticoagulant effects from both categories of drugs, but in general that's the difference. So if you have a venous clot, we're treating with venous agents. If you have an arterial clot, we're treating with arterial agents. Venous agents being oral anticoagulation when we think of DOAC and warfarin, and arterial agents we usually think of antiplatelets and kind of aspirin. They're aspirin in that category too. Okay? Sorry for my cold. So that's how we sort of think through what's going on with our patient. So for today, and what we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks is venous type clots. Okay? So our patient today has DVT. All right, so you will see that we have our whole turning point. So if everybody will go online with your mobile phones and sign into your turning point. And our first question is, what option would you choose for oral anticoagulation for Mr. Brown? So A, would you like to treat him with a DOAC, or B, would you like to treat him with warfarin? So I'll give you all a few minutes to respond. And the way that things are going to work today is that whichever answer gets the most votes, that's the path we're going to walk down. And we're going to play a Choose Your Own Adventure. It's just like the kitty book. And you guys are kids. Okay.
Right? We all have to do it.
So choose A for DOAC, B for warfarin. Choose A. Turn to page 13. All right, we have over 100 responses, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. All right, you guys chose A. So you guys wanted to choose a DOAC. Can somebody in Albany tell me why you chose a DOAC over warfarin for this patient?
Warfarin interacts with the levothyroxine.
Good. The patient has a potential drug interaction, right, with the levothyroxine, and you're worried about warfarin dosing with levothyroxine. Here's the catch. Is the patient already on warfarin?
No.
No. So when do we worry about levothyroxine drug interactions with warfarin?
When you're changing the dose of the levothyroxine.
Right. When you're changing the dose of the levothyroxine, then you would have an interaction with warfarin. So a patient who's a new start on warfarin, as long as they're stable on their levothyroxine dose and we're not changing the levothyroxine around, then we actually don't worry about warfarin a whole lot because we're going to figure out what dose of warfarin they need per their stable levothyroxine dose. Okay? I like the thought. Definitely like the thought. That's very good. We will potentially come back to that. All right, but you guys chose DOAC. What's another reason that you would choose DOAC?
Rapid onset.
I love that. Rapid onset. We talked about that last week, right? We talked about how DOACs have really short half-life. This person is rejecting Lovenox, so we need something that's going to get into the system and have a quick onset. I really like that idea. Perfect. All right, so let's choose DOAC then. All right, so if you're going to choose DOAC, which DOAC do you want to choose? Hang on, let me reset the poll. Give me a second. All right, tell me which DOAC do you want to choose?
And there's 66%
All right, again, we have over 100 folks, so we are going to look at our response. Okay. Oh no, I messed it up. Try again. Sorry, guys. I got the Kathy, I'm sorry. Can I go back to, oh, that was it. Sorry, guys. Try again, sorry. Try number 2. Quick, bunny. There you go. Thanks, Beth. All right. Memory set. Recess down here. Kathy's house. All right, so we have some split here. We have option B and option D seems to be our most popular options. So let's do some exploration. So D then was a good percentage, so let's check that before we check our first answer. So for those who chose rivaroxaban, it says our patient does not eat consistent meals. So remember when we talked yesterday, it is dose dependent, but for rivaroxaban, we do have to worry about the meals that the patient is going to eat. And it may be difficult for him to take it with food if he is inconsistent with his meals. Okay? So that would be a reason for us not to do rivaroxaban for this patient. Let's go back and let's pick apixaban. Good choice. Apixaban is a fabulous choice for this patient. But before we go on further in the case, I do want to explore the other options that you guys didn't pick. Okay? So let's look at dabigatran. So as we've talked about a little bit, dabigatran you have to keep in a pill box. And this patient, you have to keep in its original container. So because dabigatran you have to keep in its original container, this patient keeps his pills in a pill box. So that could be a red flag to us to think maybe not dabigatran for this patient because he could forget it. If he puts all of his pills in a pill box except for his dabigatran, it could be that he forgets it. So dabigatran is probably not the best option. Was there another reason that you guys chose not to do dabigatran?
There's an interaction with the torvastatin.
Yeah, we have a potential drug interaction. Any other reasons?
You need to start it and bridge it with parenteral anticoagulation.
Fabulous, I like that option too, right? So according to package labeling with dabigatran, we also should do some parenteral, and he has already said that he's not going to do that. Good. So those are some really good reasons not to do dabigatran, and you guys didn't choose that anyway. All right, how about edoxaban? You guys didn't choose edoxaban, but just like you mentioned with dabigatran, edoxaban is the same way, and it's best to start it with parenteral anticoagulation, and he is refusing that. So another good reason why we would not do edoxaban. Okay? We would also not do edoxaban if we think about creatinine clearance and having really high creatinine clearance. That's also a reason to avoid edoxaban. But for this particular patient, he's not willing to do his injection. All right, and then you guys never chose warfarin, but let's just look at that as well. So we already kind of talked through some of the options or why we wouldn't, but one that we missed or we didn't think about is the patient also talked about having transportation issues. So one of the reasons that we have a hallmark of DOAC therapy is quote unquote less visits to the clinic. Okay? All right, you guys chose apixaban as the number one. So we're gonna go with apixaban. What dose of apixaban do you all want to do? Let me reset my poll for you guys.
10 PO.
All right, we have over 100 responses, so we're going to move forward. Survey says answer D. Some of you did choose the other doses, so before we go with answer D is what you chose, we're going to explore some of the other options real quick. So some people chose A, 2.5 milligrams twice a day, then 5 milligrams twice a day. Sorry for the cough. So somebody who chose A, can you tell me why you chose A? A, can you tell me why? Nobody's going to admit it. Summer, can you tell me how you find your answer?
I looked up obesity and looked at those or whatever on the website.
Perfect. So this is what we kind of talked about yesterday, right? When we look at DOAC therapy, this is a lot of the times that I look it up because the dosing is so specific. So let's see if we actually chose this dose, what would happen to our patient. So if we chose the lowest dose possible, then our patient, you guys are laughing, isn't it cute? So if we chose the lowest dose possible, his DVT turns into a PE, and then the end of our patient. So choose your own adventure, like sometimes you don't end up with the best results. So sometimes when we don't choose the best doses for our patients, it means that it ends up with not the best result, which means worsening of his DVT into a PE. Okay. Move forward. Okay. So the same thing happens if we choose the other doses. They're all too low. So the best answer is the one that y'all chose, most of you chose, which is 10 milligrams twice a day and 5 milligrams BID. So with this expand, we do a little bit of a loading dose, and then we go to 5 milligrams twice a day. All right, so that's the dose that we chose. We didn't have our patient go into a PE. He still has his DVT. He is still alive. So now, you gave him a Pixaban. What are you going to monitor for this patient? Let me reset my poll. All right, we're above 100, so we're going to go ahead and close the poll. So what we're trying to figure out now is how we're going to monitor our Apixaban. All right, so we have a wide variety here. We have some that say answer A, some that say B, some that say D, but C, but most of us chose D. Okay? So let's start with A. So 10A levels in platelets. Somebody who chose A, can you tell me why you chose A? And this time I know somebody chose A because there's a significant number of you that chose A. So tell me, why did you choose A? Somebody who chose A, tell me why you chose A. Somebody who chose B, tell me why you chose B. Or C. A lot of you chose C. 28% of you chose C. So tell me, somebody who chose C, tell me why you chose C.
It's said to monitor renal function and also get a complete blood count, so I went with C.
Okay, and where did you find that information?
On your PowerPoint.
Or my notes, very good. And where do you think I found the information? That was a really good answer. Where do you think I found that information from?
The guidelines.
Yeah, probably the guidelines and or maybe lexicon or maybe text insert. Very good, thank you. All right, somebody who chose D. We have lots of people who chose D. So some who chose D, you can't get away from this. Like a lot of you chose D. So Tommy, Sam chose D. All right, they just, in Savannah, Sam just got ratted out, pushed in front of the bus. Sam, could you please get to the mic?
Alright, so according to Micromedics, it says monitor for serum creatinine and 10A when initiating.
That was Micromedics. See, and this is why is this different then, guys? What did we learn about yesterday? Go ahead, Natalie. Why?
You have to use 2 sources.
We always check 2 sources. Very good. And the other piece that we learned yesterday is that we use our clinical judgment, right? So, a lot of you chose D, let's chose D. Alright. So the 10A levels are not recorded. So yes, technically, if you go to Micromedics or if you go to some of the your drug information resources, it will say you can check 10A levels, but this is not something we routinely do in practice. So does it exist? Yes. We also talked through this with something else. Enoxaparin, maybe, is what we talked about it with, I think, last week. So same kind of concept. Well, yes, it exists, but do we actually monitor it? Not necessarily. It's not routine at this point. So you will see it, but we don't typically do it. Okay? So that's a big note. If I was going to put a question on an exam, and I was going to ask you what would I monitor for DOACs, then I would not want the answer to be 10A levels, because we do not routinely monitor 10A levels in clinical practice, as of yet. Maybe one day, but for right now, monitoring 10A levels is not on the top of my list of things to monitor for DOAC therapy. Okay? So if I were to ask you, what do we monitor for DOAC therapy? I would not want you to put 10A levels, because that's not what we typically do in routine clinical practice as of right now. Okay? What we do typically do in routine clinical practice of monitoring for DOAC, every place that monitors DOAC therapy will monitor serum creatinine and will monitor platelets. That's cute. All right. Savannah's like throwing up some party signs in here. We got so excited. But it's people who chose serum creatinine platelets. So in clinical practice, this is what we really do. So when I see a patient who comes in who is newly started on a DOAC, I'm going to get their renal function. I'm going to make sure it's nice and stable. Because as we talked about yesterday, these drugs are heavily dependent on renal function. The class is as a whole dependent on renal function. So I'm going to get renal function and platelets as well. Okay? In routine clinical practice, as of right now, this day specifically, we do not do 10A levels. Is that coming down the pipeline? Probably, but not right now. All right. Okay. So we are going to move to day 3. So on ELC, you are going to have day 3. Before you get to day 3, what I want everybody to do on every campus is go through all of your windows and close everything down. So before you open anything, go close all of your module windows, because otherwise you'll have multiple days open and it gets super confusing. So make sure you close down all of your day 1 stuff. We're done with that. You do not need to revisit it. And then go into ELC and open your day 3. Okay? Just like you would as a 4th year student or a pharmacist in real life practice, you're going to use the patient care process. You're going to go through day 3 of the patient's chart, and you're going to use the patient care process to figure out what are your problems with your patients, what are you going to do about the problem, what's the plan you're going to come up with, what are some monitoring things you're going to come up with, what are some counseling points you're going to come up with, and then we're going to reconvene and go through day 3.
So the
He's getting discharged today. Today.
But you're 5 or 10.
Are we still so it should be 3?
And 2 milligrams is the weakest recommendation for the lowest level of calcium. You want to target of 2.5.
We are approaching 100 responses. So if you have not chosen an answer, think through what you would be doing. If you are a 4th year AFI student on rotation, you're faced with this situation, think through what you would do. All right, somebody in Athens, what I want you to do is present day 3 to me. So we already talked about before, patient came in the ED, patient came in day 1. You've now been on rotation with your preceptor, and this is day 3 of your day 4 probably of your rotation. You've gotten to know this patient. So day 3, somebody in Athens, present the patient to me now. All right, somebody in Athens, present the patient.
So we find that apixaban isn't covered by his insurance, so we want to switch him to warfarin, and they're asking us for help.
Good, thank you. Okay, so whoever answered, I don't know everybody's name, which is unfortunate, tell me, what did you do?
Well, I believe the lab monitoring would be, we'd check out the INR.
Okay.
And per personally, I would go with 7.5 milligrams.
7.5. Tell me why it should be 7.5.
Oh, I mean A. Sorry, I completely said that incorrectly. It's A.
Is it what did you choose? Say it again.
A, 5 milligrams.
You chose 5. Okay, why did you choose 5 milligrams? Why did you choose 5 milligrams?
Might went to that after the calculations.
You what? According to my calculations? How did you come up with these calculations?
Isn't it just that's 5 is an initial? You always initiate with 5.
Typically.
We went off the package insert.
You went off of what? What did you go off of?
The package insert.
Package insert? This package is for the one and
I meant the guidelines.
or the guidelines. Okay, fine. All right, let's see what the class is. Thank you for that interaction and discussion. You can see guidelines. All right, good. 99% of you chose A. So the other day when Dr. Petey was talking about drug interactions with warfarin, she had mentioned how sometimes we can choose to start people on 10 milligrams of warfarin, but it kind of depends on the patient. So it's not really a blanket starting dose. A lot of patients will start with 5 milligrams, especially for this patient who may already be on other forms of anticoagulation. And that makes me think like, maybe a little bit more conservative, start on 5. But we'll see people who load with 10. So let's explore our 7.5 milligram option. If we do our calculation and we were to come up with 7.5 milligrams, this is exactly why I wouldn't go with the 7.5 milligram dose for this patient. He is already on apixaban, he's already anticoagulated, and so there is maybe a slight risk that you overshoot. This is probably very extreme. Is he going to have massive GI bleed with the 7.5 milligrams? Probably not, but possible. So, of note, this is probably overdramatic and graphic, but nonetheless, depending on our patient-specific factors, we may choose to start with a 5 milligram dose instead of starting higher doses of warfarin. This is an art, not a science, so if you chose 7.5 milligrams in the real world, would your patient have a massive GI bleed? Probably not. Okay. So all of these are massive GI bleeds, and then if we were to take APTT, we know that we do not monitor APTT for warfarin. What do we use APTT for? Somebody use a microphone. Heparin. Thank you. Court, was that Courtney? Thank you, Courtney, for using a microphone. Yes, we use our APTT for heparin. When do we monitor our APTT with heparin? Courtney? Somebody can help Courtney out. Phone a friend.
Is it 6 hours after administering it?
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. 6 hours. So with heparin, we would monitor at baseline. So don't forget the baseline. So with heparin, we monitor APTT at baseline and at 6 hours. Okay? Important information from our previous lecture. All right. So we are going to go back, and Athens told us that we are going to choose and the whole class, right? 99% said that we are going to do warfarin 5 milligrams, and we're going to check the INR. All right, Summer, you're up. When will we stop the apixaban? So remember, we're starting the warfarin on day 3 of the patient's hospitalization. So now we are going to transition the patient from apixaban to warfarin, and we have to figure out when are we going to stop the apixaban. Oh, I gotta reset my poll. Sorry, guys. I got so excited I forgot to reset the poll. We are on day 3 of the hospitalization. We are on day 3 and we're starting warfarin. And now we have to figure out when are we going to stop the apixaban. So the patient has been on apixaban since day 1 of hospitalization. Okay? So now the patient's not being discharged because now insurance got wonky. And we're trying to get it stable on coagulation before he goes home. So he's not actually going home right now. We're gonna keep him in the hospital longer until we get him stable on anticoagulation therapy, and then we're gonna send him home, okay? So we cancel the discharge orders, no longer going home, he's staying in the hospital with us until he's stable on his anticoag. So today is hospital day 3, we're stopping, we are, sorry, let me not say that. On today's hospital day 3, we are starting the warfarin. And then my question to you is, when are we stopping Geopixaban? Still for the Apixaban because he's in the hospital. We're adding it to his hospital bill. But he's leaving. One day, he's gonna leave. Was there another question at another campus? I heard a mic go. Was there a question at another campus? I heard some feedback. All right, we are going to go forward then, okay? We have over 100 responses. We're going to move forward. Vast majority chose D. Some of you chose A. Some of you chose C. We have a lone ranger at B. So let's walk through. All right. A, C, then D. All right, so some people chose A. Somebody who chose A, don't be shy, please. Somebody who chose A, tell me why you chose A. % of you chose A, so I know there's somebody out there. It wasn't just an accident. You don't have to.
I didn't vote, but I was going to choose A, but then I realized that we're not bridging them, so I would have changed my answer. That was my original thought process.
Okay, so explain that one to me one more time so I can make sure I heard it the way that you said it.
I would have chose A because if we were going to bridge them, we would stop it today. But I didn't realize we weren't bridging them, so I would have changed my mind.
Okay. What made you think that you wanted to bridge them?
It is
Why did you want to bridge them?
He's on Apixaban and there's
Because they're going from a DOAC to warfarin, and that is in the guidelines, but since they don't like the needles, then I guess we wouldn't bridge them.
Do we always bridge when we go from a DOAC to warfarin? Is that a normal thing that we typically do?
I guess not.
Yeah, not most of the time. Why does it not make sense to bridge between DOAC and warfarin? Can be anybody think of that. Why do we not typically bridge between DOAC and warfarin?
Because there's no clinical trials.
Okay. Yeah, that's not what really we did in clinical trials. What did we do in clinical trials when we moved patients from DOAC to warfarin? We talked about this last week. We brushed on it. Bring it all home, guys. It's all together.
Since DOACs have a short half-life, we want to go ahead and start the warfarin, and then wait 3 more days and then stop the apixaban.
Very good, very good, very good. So, because DOACs have a short half-life, then we don't really need the enoxaparin, or we don't need any kind of bridging, because the patient is already anticoagulated. So as soon as they started that apixaban, they have full anticoagulation. So there's no need to bridge or to have another anticoagulant on board, because as long as the patient is still taking apixaban, they're still anticoagulated. Now, why would we wait that 3 days?
Warfarin takes a little while to onset.
Right, warfarin takes a little while to onset, and what's our risk in those first few days? Why do we have risk in the first few days? What is our risk and why do we have it? There you go. Thank you.
Because they're not at a therapeutic INR yet.
So what does that put the patient at risk for if the patient's not at a therapeutic INR? Yeah, they're at risk for more clots, right? So if this patient were to clot more, what would happen? What's going to happen with these DVT, right?
Pulmonary.
Very good. Very good, yeah. So if we don't have him anticoagulated, then he has the risk of his DVT turning into a PE, right? We don't want that. We want him to be fully anticoagulated.
On the guidelines, it says wait the 3 days, or take the apixaban for the 3 days, but then also check the INR, which just prior to the last dose, or something, anyways, before you can choose to completely stop the apixaban, check the INR and verify that it's therapeutic, it's 2 or above. Is that what's done correctly?
But I'm going to put a caveat with that. Yes. For your purposes, absolutely. That's what we do. Is check the INR, make sure the INR is therapeutic, and then we stop whatever DOAC patient's on. So that's definitely the answer. And sometimes what we do is check the INR twice. Most of the time it's just once with DOAC therapy. You'll see in some clinics they check it twice, but not vast majority of the time they check it once. That is technically what we do, but the answer is we don't really know. I'm sorry for all the talking, guys. The answer is we don't really know because we don't have the clinical trials that exactly tell us what to do in these cases. But this is our best guess judgment, is that we at least keep the apixaban on for 3 days, plus or minus check the INR. I prefer to check an INR if I can get the patient in, which is not always feasible, but if I can get the patient in, I'd like to get the patient in and check their INR at that day 3 when I want to stop the apixaban. Is that going to make sense? All right.
Dr. Misher.
Of course, go for it.
So on our notes from last year, it says to stop the DOAC and then bridge with a low molecular rate heparin. So I guess my question is just like, did the guidelines change, or why are we learning something different?
That's it. Read it, Casey. Read it, Casey. Hang on, Casey's looking.
The guidelines say there are no clinical trials to direct how best to switch patients from these medications to warfarin. Product labeling suggests stopping rivaroxaban and apixaban for edoxaban and starting warfarin in conjunction with a therapeutic dose of parental anticoagulant in the next dose is due and overlapping therapy for at least 5 days and the INR is 2 or greater. This approach may be reasonable in patients at high risk for the VTE occurrence, but it's probably,
Sorry, just gotta scroll. Scrolling.
It is probably unnecessary for most patients with VTE. Alternatively, warfarin and DOAC could be overlapped for 3 days, followed by measuring the INR just prior to the dose of DOAC with the assumption of some DOAC influence on the INR. The DOAC can be discontinued once the INR is 2 or greater.
Yes. So the answer is, we don't have a clinical trial that tells us exactly what to do. So we have various options. There are different approaches. What I've seen in clinical practice is that we don't typically do bridging. Part of the reason we don't do bridging is because of the risk for bleed. If you could argue, obviously, you could argue to do bridging because the patient is technically at risk. And Casey brought up another point when she read the guidelines, is that your DOACs can affect your INR to some degree. So you don't exactly know what the true INR is, because you do have some interaction there. So your DOAC will affect the INR, so you don't know how accurate the INR is if you're getting the INR. But if you switch them to Lovenox and you do Lovenox, Lovenox does not affect the INR, so then you would have an accurate INR. But the real answer is we have no idea what to do with these patients because we have no clinical trials that actually tell us. In clinical practice, I usually don't do Lovenox, for 1, because it's expensive, for 2, because it's an injection, and for 3, because the patients roll their eyes at me. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Does it help to make it completely gray? Yeah. Right, we found a gray area. But for all intents and purposes, and package insert also quotes this part as well. The part that we used last week when we were talking about switching agents. So the answers we don't really know. The answers we don't have a clinical trial that tells us. Both ways are probably appropriate. Given the half-life of apixaban, you're going to be anticoagulated, so I don't know. Right? You do your best. Okay. So, let's put the assumption that we're not bridging for this patient. So if we think back to, if the answer is, I don't know, then we're going to relate it back to our patient, right? So our patient was refusing needles and refusing to get stuck in any kind of way. So as was mentioned, that made us kind of think through our thoughts. And for this patient, we're actually not going to have the option of doing bridging anyway, okay? So even if we thought about bridging, we wouldn't be bridging. On the flip side, if he was letting us inject us, as Casey mentioned, for our high-risk patients, we can consider doing a true bridge with a low molecular weight heparin, because this patient's really high risk, right? He has a brand new DVT. So on the flip side, if he was letting me inject him, maybe this is a patient I would consider. Okay? All right. So some of you chose day 3. If we chose day 3, too early, patient's not anticoagulated, and he is no longer with us. Day 4, same thing. Day 5, same thing. Day 6. Before we move on to day 6, I want to highlight one more point, and that was from last week when we talked about the clotting factors and protein C and protein S. So just to clarify this point from last week, if I can find the right slide, which I don't remember where it's at. Right here, right? So what did we talk about last week? Specifically in regard to starting warfarin therapy and the importance of being anticoagulated in that first week of warfarin therapy. What are we at risk for? Go ahead, Casey. Casey got excited and she couldn't remember what. Yeah, but you need to use the microphone.
It's because you're also blocking your protein C, which is the body's natural like anticoagulant.
Exactly, right? So we're knocking out protein C when we start warfarin therapy. We're knocking that out really quickly, and that's our natural form of anticoagulation. So apixaban has a really short half-life, so it would be out of the system. We would also no longer have any protein C in the system after starting the warfarin, and so he would have no anticoagulation on board, and he has an active DVT, and then that DVT would become a PE, and there goes our patient. Okay? Let's pause for a second. We've gone over a lot of information. What questions do you guys have so far? All right. So we've been a little bit dramatic in this class session, and we've pretended to have our patient not be with us any longer, which doesn't typically happen. It's a little over dramatic, but we did that for class purposes. So let's move on. So we decided hospital day 6, we are going to stop. So 3-day overlap, right? Today's hospital day 3, and then 3 days, 1, 2, 3, right? Hospital day 6, we're gonna stop. Fabulous. We get to day 7, the patient is discharged happily on warfarin therapy, and he goes into the abyss, okay? So now, we are all pharmacists at an anticoagulation clinic, okay? So what I want you all to do is close down everything, all your browsers that you have so far, so you don't get confused. So if you still had day 1, hospital day 1 open, close that down. If you still had hospital day 3 open, close all that stuff down. If you don't have any of that open anymore, make sure you completely close it down. Go back into ELC, and what should be open is now a clinic visit. So we've skipped back. As I mentioned at the beginning of class, we were in the past, in July, and now we've moved to present day, okay? So now we are all pharmacists in an outpatient clinic, okay? You guys are on your 4th year rotation. You are going in to see the patient. So you are checking out the patient out in front of the patient's room. Patient is already in the room. You're going in there and checking things out. You're gonna go talk to him, okay? So I want you, before you do this, I want you to use the patient care process. I want you to go into the module, use the patient care process, figure out what are your problems, figure out how are you gonna address them, what monitoring parameters are you gonna do, and then we're gonna come to some conclusions. So for the rest of the class period today, I'm gonna be the patient. You all are gonna be the 4th year pharmacy students / future awesome pharmacists. And you are gonna conduct the patient visit with me. So now I'm the patient, and you guys are gonna walk through a visit. So this is real deal. This is gonna happen on your first day of AFI rotation. You've already presented the patient, presented his whole hospital stay to your preceptor, and now you're about to walk in the room with me, the patient. Okay? So I'm gonna give you 10 minutes or so, and then you guys are gonna be the pharmacist, and you're gonna have to get information from me, the patient. Okay? Let me tell you why this is important for you guys as students sitting in the classroom today. It's because you have a quiz that's going to be due after class. And that quiz after class is going to be structured like a patient note. Okay? So when you are on AFI rotations, or when you are a pharmacist in an anticoagulation clinic, you write your patient notes after you see your patient. You've collected all your information, you've come up with a plan, you've told your patient what that plan is, and then you're going to write your note. You're going to sit down and write your note afterwards. There's a quiz on ELC that is structured like the note that you are going to write. So your quiz after class today will, using the information that we are about to talk through, to write that patient note. All right? So I want you to take 10 minutes I want you to go through the patient's chart, use your patient care process, and we're gonna come together, you guys are gonna ask me the questions that you want to know in order to make a decision for my warfarin therapy today and to write your patient note.
Dr. Mission,
Of course, go for it.
on the original like cartoon image, it looks like the INR is 1.6, but then when you open up Ergo, it reads that the INR is 2.0. Which value do you want us to go off of?
Was that from a different day, or was that 2.0 from today?
But it says August versus today. No, it's 9.
It's today. Change that to a 1.6. So today's INR is 1.6.
Thank you.
Sorry for the typo. Sorry. Thank you for catching it. Hey guys, so that 2.0 is not from today. That 2.0 is from 8.1. So there's not an error in the chart. Okay, we're pretending like today is today. So today is September 26th. So when you look at that 2.0, that 2.0 was from 8.1 in the chart. So the chart is correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but what we found here in Savannah is that the chart is correct and that the patient's INR was 2.0 on 8.1, which is noted on the date of the lab in the chart. So the patient's labs for today are not in the chart. You are walking into the patient room and you are pricking the finger right there in front of you, and you've just walked into the room, so you haven't put that in the chart yet. That 1.6 isn't in the chart because you just pricked the finger and took it on a point of care device.
Thank you for the clarification. I was confused about which day it was today in the Ergo.
Yep, today is today. So today is September 26th. So when you read through the chart, today is today. You are looking at the chart as if you are an API student, and today is like the real date. So that's the previous visit with us. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect.
warfarin doses.
Isn't it 5 a day?
I'm looking at his chart, and as of 8/29, it says he's taking 1.5 tablets on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then 1 tablet on Wednesday.
What?
It doesn't give the milligrams.
Where do you see this?
Under notes.
Progress notes?
Okay, so that makes it really.
He's still taking 5 milligram tablets.
Oh yeah, on the orders it says 5 milligrams.
Okay.
So does that mean he's taking 7.5 on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 5 on Wednesday?
As long as it's
So that's 7.5 times 6 is 15 times 3, 45 plus 5. She's taking 50 a week. And what, we'd have to increase his warfarin dose up to 10%, so 50 to 55. How would you break down 55?
Is that still what he's taking? It's been a month since that. Is that still what he's taking? It's been a month since that.
So we'd have to interview him to see.
Oh, well, it says return to clinic 9/26/18 at the bottom of that note.
So he should be doing this.
He should still be doing that, yes.
Do you think it's maybe like an adherence issue? Because his warfarin's. Yeah, maybe, or maybe he's just not taking it like he's supposed to be taking it. Remember that story that one of the professors told us about how a patient would be like, yeah, I took it this morning, but they only took it like that morning of the visit, not like every other morning?
This morning, the story also forgot and had Dr. Jerry was about that kid that he was eating his suppositories. Mine was similar to that. About
Nice.
the guy that was swallowing his Burrito tablets maybe. Instead of like putting them in the inhaler, he was swallowing the tablets.
Nice.
That was in our recitation class. I was like, what?
It happens. You will pay for medicines that.
It would be funny if he swallowed the tablet and then he'd be using his burrito. With nothing in there to wash it down.
You're just like, I can breathe so clearly now.
I wonder if that would really be an issue because technically you need what's inside the capsule.
Yeah, but what's inside the capsule goes into your lungs, not
I
into
know
your
it's only going where it needs to, but I wonder if it would help a little bit. Probably some other. That's so funny. Whoever gave him this burrito obviously knows how to make it right. From house. The lady was like talking about how like crass I was like, show us how you use your inhaler. She like sprayed it on herself.
Sprays it on.
I would first off, I would have to too, but I would be like. So, they come about you. Am I looking at?
Alright. Just so I can make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me now, then?
Yep.
Augusta?
Yes, ma'am.
Alden?
Yes, ma'am.
Alrighty. Knock, 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 knock. Come on in. Submit your absence. Would you like to introduce yourself? Submit your absence. Pretend like you're a fourth year student. Introduce yourself to meet the patient.
Hi, Mr. Aaron Brown. My name is Ladacia, and I'm a fourth-year pharmacy student coming to talk to you about your warfarin therapy. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you? What school do you go to? You go to that Mercer school just down the road?
Thankfully not. I go to the University of Georgia.
Oh, good. You're a dog, aren't you?
It's the only way to be.
I know it. Yeah, y'all been doing some good at football, haven't you?
We sure have.
Well, good. Are you going to help me with my work for today?
Yes.
All right, somebody in Augusta, can you ask me some questions that you want to know about?
Yeah, let's do it. I'll read it. Do it.
How are you taking your warfarin and what color are the tablets?
I take my warfarin by mouth, and I think it's a peach color.
She takes it by mouth, and she thinks it's peach color.
Can you tell me how many tablets you take on every day of the week?
Yeah, let me see here. On Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I take a tablet and a half. And then on Wednesday, my wife puts one tablet into my pillbox. So my tablet, like I told you before, was peach color. I take my warfarin by mouth. And the way that I take my warfarin on a daily basis is that my wife puts in my pillbox a tablet and a half on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then on Wednesday, she puts one tablet into my pillbox.
Okay, that sounds great. And can you tell me what you do if you ever miss a dose of your warfarin?
Well, last time I was here, I asked about that, and you told me, or the other student told me that I should just take it as soon as I remember. And sorry, coughing attack. That I just take it as soon as I remember, but if I ever miss a day, I usually write it on my calendar.
Okay, and have you missed any days since we last saw you back in August?
No, ma'am, I've been very good about taking my warfarin.
That's great. How about your diet? Any changes in your diet lately?
Yeah, you know, my wife always been telling me about my weight. And so lately, I have just been killing it with the salads. And I've been having a salad every day.
Are you going to continue to do that? And are you going to continue with that salad diet?
Yeah, you know, some of these pounds, they just gotta come off. You know, when you get older, those pounds don't come off to these young ladies.
I just want to make sure that you know, though, it's very important to be consistent because a lot of leafy green vegetables that come in salads contain vitamin K, and that can affect how your warfarin works.
Really? I didn't know that.
Right. But as long as you continue to eat consistently.
I guess men don't really say really, do they? What do guys say? I don't know. I can't pretend to be a guy. Okay, fine. Does it matter what kind of salad I have?
What kind of salads are they having? All leafy
My
greens?
wife likes that iceberg junk, but I really like to have some spinach, and sometimes I mix in some kale with it.
Yeah.
Spinach and kale are nice.
Does it matter
Spinach
what
and
kind of salad I
kale are
have?
usually the biggest culprits with that, but iceberg lettuce not so much.
Okay. So yeah, but I'm gonna continue on my spinach and kale salad. I'm gonna get this weight off. You know, I'm a dog. I gotta be ready for football season.
Have you had any change in your alcohol consumption? Are you consuming any more, any less than usual?
I don't drink any alcohol. I know it's football season, and that's, you know, maybe not the norm, but for me, I don't do that alcohol. Somebody from, who was I picking on, Augusta? Or is this coming from everywhere?
It's Augusta.
That's Augusta? Okay, we'll quit picking on Augusta. How about, Albany? Albany, can you ask some questions? Good job, Augusta, by the way. That was fabulous.
Have you recently started any new meds or discontinued any meds?
Well, I forgot to pick up my levothyroxine the other day.
Oh,
So,
Okay.
I haven't really been taking it.
All right, and have you ever had any recent dose changes of meds?
No, none of my doses have changed.
Okay, are you gonna continue, are you gonna pick up that levothyroxine soon so you can start taking that back up?
You think I should?
Yes, ma'am, I do think you should, or sir.
I know I got a high book and all, but I am a man. Okay, fine. If you tell me to, I'll probably get around to it one of these days.
Okay, I think you should do that as soon as possible.
All right, fine. I'll go today and pick it up. Savannah, come ask me a question.
Do you take any vitamins or over-the-counter medications?
No. I was told to avoid those. Something about something with my boyfriend. Why is it again that I don't take any multivitamins? I can't remember.
Some multivitamins can have vitamin K in them, so you gotta be careful with it.
Oh, okay. And that vitamin K, is that a problem?
Yes, that can affect how your warfarin works in your body.
Oh, okay. So, no, I'm not gonna take any of those multivitamins. I don't need those. I eat a pretty good diet. I've been eating my salads.
Are you gonna go to the doctor for the talks on the antibiotics gonna affect your warfarin?
Hey,
What do you say? What?
No, it's viral.
are you gonna get any antibiotics for your cough?
Did you take your dose already today?
Wait, sorry. I cut y'all off. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you take your dose of warfarin already today?
No. I think at my first visit, that pharmacy student told me that, it's best to wait until after appointments. So I usually don't take it till after my appointment. I usually take it with dinner. And I'm not really sick. I am sick, but I'm not sick. The patient's not sick. Sorry, guys. Struggle bus.
Do you always take your dose with dinner every day?
I do. I take it with dinner every day. Horrible with the microphone. I'm so sorry. All right, Athens, ask me another question.
Have you started anything over the counter or herbal recently at all?
Nah, I don't believe in that mumbo jumbo. I don't use those over-the-counter medications.
Have you experienced any chest pain or shortness of breath recently?
Nope, I'm healthy as can be.
Have you been taking your atorvastatin every day?
Yes, ma'am. I take it like I'm supposed to.
Have you noticed any bruising or had any bleeding that wouldn't stop?
No, not really. Nothing that's outside of my norm. I don't really bleed. I'm not a bleeder.
Do you ever have any problems getting to the pharmacy to get your medications or affording them?
No, I never really had any issues. I was just lazy to get that levothyroxine, but I'll go today, I promise.
I'm sure.
Have you experienced any redness or swelling? Have you experienced any redness or swelling?
No. You know, when I first got that big old swollen leg and I went to the hospital, that's all gotten better. And it hasn't come back yet. Is it supposed to come back?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
My leg was like an elephant when I was in the hospital, but it's all cleared up now.
I know you said you were trying to lose weight. Have you had any changes in weight recently?
Nah, this diet ain't working, but I'm gonna stick with the salad. It'll come off eventually.
Your INR is 1.6 today. Do you know what range we'd like it to be in typically?
I don't really know that information, but I think it's there in that in your computer. Don't y'all keep that in there?
We do. Well, the optimal range is about 2 to 3, and it could have changed because of your salads. But if you're going to stay consistent with that, then we'll adjust your meds so that way you can continue your healthy diet.
I like that idea because I want this weight to come off.
Have you been sick lately?
No, I'm in healthy as a horse. Y'all are getting there. I'm a gear. Natalie, I'm a gear. Oh, Casey, you did hit on it. Ask that question again, but more detail. Sorry, I missed it. Yeah. Yeah. But be more.
Have you been sick lately or had any other symptoms, stomach problems?
Yeah, what do you want to know about my stomach? No, there's no blood in my stool. Sorry. So let me help y'all out. I'm gonna So not ulcer. We're not worried about ulcer. What we're worried about is nausea and vomiting. Because if you have nausea and vomiting with warfarin, then sorry guys. Serious moment. So if you are having nausea and vomiting with warfarin therapy, it is important to note nausea and vomiting with especially vomiting. So nausea, not such a big deal, but vomiting is a big issue and diarrhea is a big issue with warfarin therapy because if you puke up your warfarin or you don't have proper absorption of your warfarin, then that can be potential why an INR could be low because you might not have the right therapeutic dose because you didn't absorb all of the dose for that dose. So I usually tell patients when they have nausea and vomiting, diarrhea, to put it on the calendar so I know exactly when they have that stomach issue and more importantly for how long did it last. So if it was multiple days on end and they have a low INR, that's why. To answer your question, Casey, no, my stomach has been great. I've had no issues with nausea, no issues with vomiting, no issues with diarrhea. All right, y'all, close. Got one more.
Yeah.
Well, I did have to go to the hospital a few months ago. My DVT. And then in your chart. Great, that's like that question, Casey. That question just asked. Thanks, City.
Have you been hospitalized since your DVT?
Nope, I have not been to the hospital since my DVT. The last time I went to the hospital was for that DVT, so I haven't been to the hospital. Why is it important? Pause, break from patient. Why is it important to ask the patient if they've been to the hospital since their last visit?
They change your medications upon admission?
Yeah. So if you have an admission, hospital admission, or even like an ED visit, then it's possible that your doses and your meds could have been changed. You could have received something while you were in there that could have affected the INR. And or a lot of patients will go to an ED and not tell you about it, and they went to the ED for bleeding, or they went to the ED for something related to the clot, and they don't think to tell you that. So I usually ask, have you been to the hospital or the emergency room since you've been to the last time you've seen me. That's because of all those breakers. All right, you guys hit them all. Great job. So, what I want you guys to do, so from this point on, we're not, unless you have questions, we are not discussing this patient any further because this is your quiz and we have an honor code that says we're not going to share answers, okay? So the quizzes are individual, not in your teams, they are individual. So you're going to use your notes that we just went through and you're going to use that to finish the quiz that's on TLC, which will be open until tomorrow. Before I let y'all go for the day, are there any questions of what we covered for today? Alrighty guys, I will see you guys tomorrow. Great job today.